Hey guys, welcome back! 10 years ago, the Colin McRae franchise evolved into DiRT alongside the advent of the 7th generation of console, so it's a perfect time to recall that huge leap and also its origins. Let's take a look. Back in August of 1986, Codemasters was founded by the Darling brothers, and their initial main focus was towards the action, sports and racing genres, this last one with their famous simulator series of games for the most popular 8 and 16-bit systems from mid-80s. One of their first games was BMX Simulator, that was followed by a ton other simulator entries in the series, like Grand Prix Simulator, Professional Ski Simulator, ATV Simulator, Jet Bike Simulator, Pro BMX Simulator, BMX Simulator 2, Grand Prix Simulator 2, Motocross Simulator, and Rallycross Simulator. As you can see, since 1990 that Codemasters was interested in Rallycross. Nowadays, everyone wants to beat the king. The simulator series kinda disappeared after that Rallycross title, but their racing genes remained. 750cc Grand Prix was their first and only venture into the MotoGP scene, and Paris to Dakar Rally was Cody's last real racing game, if we obviously exclude the Micro Machines franchise. By 1997, Codemasters amazed everyone with the release of TOCA Touring Car Championship for the PlayStation, PC and even the Game Boy Color. It featured tracks and teams from the 1997 British Touring Car Championship season, in where we could drive against other 15 AI drivers, and an advanced real-time damage modeling and realism that was acclaimed by all racing fans. So, to talk about DiRT, we have to go back to that era, to 1998 to be more precise, and revisit the first title of the franchise, Colin McRae Rally, released first for the PlayStation and soon followed by the PC version, that was the one that I played. Sega Rally set the tone and was a huge inspiration for Codemasters to create their own rally title, offering a more realistic approach to the genre. There was something that players and fans of the sport were hoping since the fabulous and challenging network Q RAC Rally franchise from Europress. Besides Sega Rally, Wave Race 64 and Screamer Rally were other two titles that somewhat influenced the team while developing Colin McRae Rally. Seriously? Wave Race 64? Sega Rally was the first racing title to really make the distinction between the feeling of driving on different road surfaces like asphalt, mud and gravel, and when combined with a set of wheel and pedals, the sheer fun of driving off-road. As a PlayStation owner, I always envied my friends that owned Saturns, cause it was the home system that received the arcade conversion of Sega Rally. It ended up being ported to the PC by 1997, and also by 1997 was when Sony's console received its first proper rally game, V-Rally from Infogrames. Sadly, I ended up finding it so unrealistic, with cars showing no weight whatsoever, that I quickly forgot about it and immediately sold my copy. In the meanwhile, Colin McRae Rally was being shaped using TOCA's game engine, but Codemasters ended up realizing that it wouldn't work, so a new game engine needed to be created from scratch specifically for Colin McRae Rally, and with the precious help from Colin McRae himself, Codemasters built the foundations for this amazing franchise that I truly love and play all the time. Having the name of the 1995 WRC champion was already a huge accomplishment for Codemasters, but even so, they wanted to make the best rally game ever and not only rely upon the name of the renowned world champion. The dev team spent hours watching real rally events and how cars reacted to each surface, and would try to replicate that in their game. So they've developed in-house their own track design application that was used on all 5 first games of the franchise. Colin McRae Rally was also the first racing title to feature a realistic damage model, improving the one that was introduced in TOCA Touring Car Championship. As you know, the very first Gran Turismo was released a few months before Colin McRae Rally and featured indestructible cars, and is still considered the best-selling title on the original PlayStation. So Codemasters were kind of reluctant on offering the chance for players to destroy their cars, but gladly all manufacturers agreed with the level of destruction that they were aiming for. Grabbed Colin McRae Rally Day 1 around July of 1998 on time for my own birthday, but ended up selling it as soon as the PC version was available by September of that same year. With graphics set to max, Colin McRae Rally simply blew my mind away, with particles, dust and mud being realistically splattered all across the rear end of our car. With a somewhat realistic career mode, it engaged the player right from the beginning that would really grab us and take us through a journey across a bunch of awesome and beautiful locations around the world. A couple of years later, by 2000, again for PlayStation, later for PC, and by 2002 for the Game Boy Advance, Colin McRae Rally 2.0 arrived bigger and better, also including rallycross style of events, in where we race against 3 other opponents. Codemasters was once again trying to show players the sheer fun and chaos of rallycross, nowadays a highly popular form of motorsport. These circuit racing events were meant to be included right in the first title of the franchise, but that one had such an authentic feel to it, with the inclusion of the rally school, that rallycross style of events were left aside, finally making its way into 2.0. By October of 2002, the third installment in the series arrived for the next generation of consoles, the PS2 and the Xbox. Again, played first the PC port that arrived only by June of 2003, that offered high-resolution graphics, and I recall that the simple fact or small but extremely important detail of being possible to realistically cut the ribbons on the side of the road was mind-blowing and left me absolutely speechless, mainly because of its authenticity. Yeah, call me crazy! Bear in mind that until then, these ribbons were like concrete walls in all other rally games out there, and one title I can recall that kind of introduced it was the Off-Roader Insane, released practically 2 years before and that I've already reviewed. By September of 2003 arrived Colin McRae 04, again for the PlayStation 2 and the Xbox. The PC version would come only by April 2004 and, like the PS2 version, exclusive for Europe. It went against the demanding Richard Burton's Rally, released a couple of months later. The arcade-ish approach to the Colin McRae series, that was extremely playable using solely a keyboard or a gamepad, was a major advantage against the extremely difficult Richard Burton's Rally, only playable using a set of wheel and pedals. Colin McRae 04 improved upon the third installment in the series, graphically and in the gameplay area. The pinnacle of the Colin McRae Rally series arrived in September of 2004 and for the first time with a simultaneous release for the 3 main platforms, PC, Xbox and PS2. Colin McRae Rally 2005 is a gorgeous looking game, with plenty of new graphical tweaks and effects, and at the same time set the tone for things to come, and ended the, let's say, first part of the series with my favorite entry on the Colin McRae Rally saga. The new generation of HD systems was coming, and brand new graphics, audio and physics engines were needed, so by June of 2007 came Colin McRae DiRT for PC and Xbox 360. It premiered an innovative game engine co-developed between Codemasters and Sony Computer Entertainment and was a tremendous success, selling over 500,000 copies in its first week. It offered the chance to embrace a whole lot of new off-road disciplines and not just the traditional rally racing, stadium and rallycross events. So we have also car races with buggies and trucks, rally raid races with Dakar style of vehicles that even includes these mighty desert trucks, and hill climb in the mighty Pikes Peak track. The PlayStation 3 version was released only by the 11th of September in the United States and on the 14th in Europe. Sadly, the day after, the 15th, will be remembered as the day when Colin McRae left us, along with his young son and two friends of the family in an helicopter crash. Codemasters' huge marketing campaign for the launch of DiRT on the PlayStation 3 was withdrawn after an agreement between the developer and McRae's family. In DiRT 2, released a couple of years later, a video tribute to Colin's career was included and would be unlocked after the Colin McRae challenge was completed. This is still my favorite DiRT game from the whole franchise, cause it introduced so many different locations completely new to the series, and those raid events are extremely fun and challenging, and as you know, I simply love this form of motorsport, Dakar style. 3 special modes were also featured in DiRT 2, Gate Crasher, Domination and Last Man Standing. All combined forms this amazing package of pure arcade racing that I can only recommend you all to try, even if racing games aren't your thing. The Ego engine was improved upon the one used in the very first DiRT and Race Driver grid, and the flashback function present in that last one was kept intact for this second venture into the DiRT series. I also consider DiRT 2 the most beautiful, graphically speaking, and on the PC is where it really shines, with ultra settings, and the water effects were and still are visually mind-blowing. A gorgeous game overall. It was noticeable that Codemasters was trying to reach a wider audience with the inclusion of names and voices of, for instance, Travis Pastrana, Ken Block, Tanner Faust and Dave Mirra. This was the last game of the whole series to bear Colin's name on the cover.
Keep mid, over crest.
By May of 2011, DiRT 3 was released, and at a later stage, a Colin McRae Vision charity pack was available for download that included the iconic Ford Escort MK2, and all profits from the sale would be donated to Colin McRae Vision, a foundation created by the McRae family after the pilot's death. DiRT 3 wasn't a brilliant game, nor a worthy follow-up to the jaw-breaking DiRT 2, but it sure is a lot of fun. It brought weather conditions like rain and snow and a new Gymkhana mode, along with the possibility to upload replay clips directly to YouTube. DiRT 3 consultants Ken Block, Chris Meek and Mikko Irvonen, among others, recall the legend and how we inspired them to be the best at the sport.
Has to be my idol and mentor some years ago, Colin McRae.
It was really his heart and his drive and how hard he drove. He just drove.
He set down a legacy which we're still continuing to follow.
His ethos was, if in doubt, flat out, and that just showed through every single race that he competed in.
Well, Colin McRae is one of the best drivers in the history of forever.
He just went for it every time and all the time. He was just spectacular, really great driver.
A really big deal to me to be a part of this series that really started with Colin McRae.
A year after, by May of 2012, Dirt Showdown arrived, reviving the sheer fun of other racing titles from the past, like Destruction Derby and Flat Out. But it was simply that. No rally or off-road options in this one. What would make fans of the series kinda disappointed with Codemasters for releasing a game with dirt splattered all over its cover and having practically nothing in common with its older brothers. And to compensate that, by April of 2015, Codemasters announced and made available through Steam an early access to their next entry into the Dirt franchise, Dirt Rally. It was shaped with the precious feedback from fans like myself. Grabbed the early access day one and watched it being shaped and turned into a realistic rally simulation, fondly labeled by gamers as the Dark Souls of rally games. The full PC version of Dirt Rally was finally released in December of 2015, time when I also uploaded my review, followed by the console ports by April of 2016. It features a completely different physics model built from scratch and a wide list of cars to choose from. I could only wish that it had more locations and rallies, like one of my favorites, the Safari Rally in Kenya, that was excluded from the WRC after the 2002 event won by, you guessed it, Colin McRae. Also, during development, Codemasters signed a partnership with the FIA World Rallycross Championship that brought official rallycross locations to Dirt Rally, and Pikes Peak would make its return to the series, introduced, as you remember, in the very first Colin McRae Dirt. Milestone also included Pikes Peak Hill Climb in their Sebastian Loeb Rally Evo, also from 2016. But in the meanwhile, the license for the event was grabbed by Polyphony Digital for their Gran Turismo franchise. If you recall, it appeared first in Gran Turismo 2 almost 2 decades ago. And recently, as a kind of celebration for these 10 amazing years of Dirt, its 6th installment was released. Dirt 4, a direct sequel to Dirt 3 and not to Dirt Rally, so hold on to your copy of Dirt Rally if you're looking for realistic rally physics. With Dirt 4, Codemasters went back to grab attention from the masses with a simpler and enjoyable ride that everyone could tackle. There's no real-life stages like the ones in Dirt Rally, like Col de Turini or Sweet Lamb, but there's a feature called Your Stage in the heart of this brand new installment that procedurally generates tracks on the fly. So instead of those well-known locations and tracks that everyone wants to replicate and grab official licenses to be able to use them, Codemasters offered the player an almost infinite way of playing different tracks anytime we want. Yeah, I know that there's the official Rallycross locations and its license is splattered on the game's cover, but honestly, I prefer to play around with the Your Stage feature than anything else included in Dirt 4. Even the Land Rush stuff is secondary and, let's be honest, kind of boring. Rally racing from point A to point B is my main focus in this title and I'm having a blast with it. Also, we can clearly see the influence of former Evolution Studios employees every time we come across a wrecked car at the trackside, just like in WRC Rally Evolved from 2005. We have to give it up to Codemasters for creating this amazing track generation tool that was secretly on development for many years now, and it totally delivers a compelling and intuitive way of creating our own tracks with a touch of a button and share it with the world. The feeling of not knowing what's around the corner, delivered by Dirt 4, is the perfect tribute to Colin McRae, whose motto was, if in doubt, flat out. So guys, here's my sort of tribute to a franchise that I absolutely love since its origins back in 1998, and to a developer and publisher that is still among us since 1986 and back then responsible for amazing titles for my ZX Spectrum with their Simulator and Dizzy series. What else have Codemasters reserved for us? They'll certainly bring a new grid title for the current gen, but as for rally and off-road racing, I think that things are shaping up pretty well. What do you think? Leave a comment and wishes for Dirt 5. In the meanwhile, feel free to browse my channel for more awesome retro and not so retro stuff since the early days of video gaming. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please like, comment again, share and subscribe to It's a Pixel Thing. Thank you very much for watching and I'll see you all in the next episode.
Keep calm.